Hello, Professor Noller. So the Kaiser Health News Weekly definitely did challenge me a little bit academically because some of the things they talked about I really hadn't been paying attention to in the news or, hearing a lot about. So definitely hearing about some of that was very interesting, like Walmart being sued. I did not know that. And also some of the different agenda changes that are going to be happening in the government with, an all-Democrat lead and the Senate and House, as well as, the presidency. It did raise a few emotions talking about the opioid crisis, because it's an emotional topic. It's affected a lot of people, myself included, with family members or just people I know. And, it's a crisis for that reason. And I do think that Walmart being sued is probably a good thing if they are, in fact, filling prescriptions for a large amount of money or a large amount of opioids and not really looking into them or questioning those prescriptions. Let me see here. And I do hope the Biden administration does continue that. I think that that's something to look into and, to figure out why are they doing this, Is there suspect motives behind it? So the topics they discussed did raise concerns for me as, the vaccine is being pushed this year, and there is vaccine hesitancy with it. And I think that's a very big problem for, trying to get herd immunity out in the public, especially with healthcare workers refusing the vaccine, which I actually did not know healthcare workers were refusing the vaccine because you'd think they're healthcare workers. They would know the science behind getting the vaccine. So I feel that people seeing that would definitely scare some people who aren't, as medically versed in vaccination policies and vaccinations in general. If I were, a person who was not educated on vaccines, thinking about getting the COVID-19 vaccine, and I saw that even healthcare workers weren't getting it, that would definitely put some, thoughts in my mind that, is this vaccine safe? If they're not getting it, why should I get it? And also with the with how Florida never did, no states had a plan to process it, but Florida, there's been elderly people waiting in line, and elderly are very at risk, and so they're waiting in line for hours, sometimes overnight, and then they're not even getting a chance to get this vaccine. So they definitely talked about how let's see, where is it? They talked about how Biden would set up a federal vaccination sites, which would help, and then how the National Guard is being used currently for vaccination rollout, which is good. But also they raised some questions about if the Army got involved or they militarized it, how that would cause more vaccine hesitancy because, it would make it seem like a bigger deal. The podcast didn't really contradict with any beliefs I held previously because what they were saying wasn't really opinion-based. It was more the facts are happening. The one thing I did kind of disagree with them a little bit is how, hospitals are now required to disclose their prices and allow people to see prices and comparison shop hospitals. And I understood what they were saying, it makes hospitals feel like how did they word it? They have to, lower their prices, or it's gouging hospitals on what they can show people. And I understand that the rollout of it has been difficult and there's legal problems involved with it because hospitals aren't disclosing it in the easiest way for people to find. But I do think if it was planned the right way, hospitals disclosing their price information to insurers and to people would help the cost of prices. I'm a strong believer that people should know what they're paying for. You should, not go into a hospital and, be slapped with a $20,000 dollar bill and not know what you're being charged for, and I know you can't ask for an itemized receipt, but a lot of people don't know about that. And I do think that people should know what they're being charged for. And so they kind of talked about how it wasn't the best thing. And I can understand that. But I also think it is a good thing to have in the future, if that makes sense. The podcast did leave me with some questions, mostly regarding, governmental issues, because I know, as they mentioned in the podcast, Democrats leaders have always promised, to be the healthcare people. They'd push a lot of healthcare. And I really hope that we do see that moving in with the Biden administration. I hope that there is a lot of healthcare, reform or, new agendas and policies. I mean, we're obviously not going to see it until they are in office. But I really do hope that does happen. What else did they talk about? I know there's going to be a big focus on COVID relief. And I know there's some relief packages being thrown around right now. I'm not 100% sure if they've settled on any. But I do hope they come out with COVID relief for the people that need that. I do also hope that they address, like I was talking about the opioid crisis that has increased, and they talked about it in the podcast, how, stumbling over my words here, sorry, how, they need to address COVID, but they also need to address other things that have risen because of COVID. And obviously COVID, like they said, takes like slot 1, 2, and 3 in the process of this, but also, suicides, mental health, opioid crisis, all of that has increased because of shutdowns and, just trying to stay alone, isolating, quarantining. So I really hope we see a spike in, care for that. Maybe like counseling that is free from the government. Maybe I don't know if that already exists. It probably does. But I hope there's also a big push for mental health once the vaccine kind of rolls out, maybe more people become immune and we're a little bit safer. I mean, as far as meshing with my experiences or readings, them talking about COVID, and the vaccine hesitancy, we've been talking about a lot about that, especially last semester in some of my classes. We were talking about, why people should get the vaccine and why people are being hesitant about it because of, how quickly it came out. Some people are skeptical of the research and all of that. And I really do hope that people do get the vaccine and, they see that it is okay. But I also can understand their hesitancy because, even my parents who aren't that educated, they come up to me and they're like, Delaney, should we get this vaccine? They trust me and I'm their 22-year-old daughter. So I could definitely see how people who don't have a resource in their life for getting the vaccine, who maybe don't trust the doctors because they know the doctor might push it, how if they don't have someone in their life that is more knowledgeable on them, how they might not understand the vaccine. So I really hope that there's some headway with that and, getting a mass campaign out to tell people about the vaccine. And yeah, I really enjoyed the podcast. I learned a lot. And I'm very excited for next week's.